Welcome, everyone. This is Glenda, and you're watching Glenda's Dragons Den. I'd like to take an opportunity to say thank you. I'm so grateful for you guys being here every week after week, for sharing, for liking the videos. And for those who have not yet, please subscribe. I don't charge for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Everything there is for free. So please enjoy, share away. Don't forget to do that because this way my guests also get the exposure that they really deserve. So, with that being said, I would like to thank a great, phenomenal guest who's an author of very interesting books, Dr. Joanna. I can't say your last name, so you're going
Kuya,
to. There
Kuya.
you go. There you go. I figure instead of me messing that up, you go.
Let me say it right. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So, tell us about yourself. Like, what your life was like to that led you to writing these books.
Okay. So, I think like lots of your viewers would uh, could relate to is that I didn't intend to be spiritual necessarily, although I was brought up as a Catholic, so in a traditional way, I was, I guess, spiritual. But
Mhm.
eventually, although I tried to be Catholic, it became a little bit too ritualistic, and I couldn't really find any answers. So I went on a spiritual journey. I originally was born in communist Poland, and just so you know the person I am, I left with a borrowed suitcase and $20 and I went to Paris with with an idea of becoming famous writer one day. So
Hey, and here
yeah,
you are, famous writer, right?
and it's good to be young and dream big, right?
Right.
And from then, I also went to Sweden, then Canada. I'm also a Canadian citizen, and I traveled through Asia and Central America, and eventually ended up here in Australia. And I am a tenured academic, so I am a senior lecturer for last 20 years and so on. And as I was traveling, and also when I arrived in Australia, I got the initiation to esoteric spiritual tradition, which completely changed my life. So I wanted to be a famous writer, I wanted to be a professor, and everything changed after that, right? So my
Mhm.
world collapsed in a way because a new world had to be built. And
Right.
unfortunately, I was fighting it. And so that's why I made it painful for myself because I thought, I
Right.
want stuff, right?
Right. Right.
And the path took me somewhere else. And somehow on this way, started to be fascinated with the Gospel of Mary Magdalene because it actually happened just after I finished my PhD here in Australia. And two men approached me to go on a trip to Jerusalem with them because they believed they made some biblical discoveries there, archaeological discoveries. And one of them handed the Gospel of Mary Magdalene to me, which I have never heard of, which is very interesting because actually my master's degree is from the Pontifical Institute at the University of Toronto, which is a branch of the Vatican, right?
Yeah.
So we but we were focused on just the canonical gospels, and like I didn't
Right.
know that other gospels existed. So I have studied as a spiritual seeker and as a scholar the Gospel of Mary Magdalene for over 20 years now. So my book about Mary Magdalene, the other goddess, Mary Magdalene and the goddesses of Eros and secret knowledge, is looking into the archetypes of goddesses that represented both wisdom and also the healing power of sexuality. And I think I was very brave because people usually think the worst about sexuality, but in
Yeah.
esoteric traditions, it is a very important power that when it is purified, it actually can help us with our spiritual evolution. So that was that book. And then I was very happy with this, and I had no desire whatsoever to write another book. And then Christmas 2023, I started to read somebody else's book, Professor Diana Pasukas. I read already her book, American Cosmic, and this was Encounters with Non-Human Intelligences. And I felt that I have to write my own book in response to hers.
Okay.
Because my soul was shaken, let's put it this way, because I was exposed to what I now call, now they are called transhumanist and posthumanist agendas. So if you allow me to explain, I'm sure,
Yes, please.
just in case, because there are new terms, and some people think, oh, maybe, what it really is.
Right.
So transhumanism, there are like many definitions of transhumanism, but what worries me about transhumanism, it is that it basically proposes gradually, first through just, a Neuralink, maybe a chip in your brain, and so on, for medical reasons, which, there may be good results with this. But basically, gradually, they propose that we transfer human consciousness into a computer program or into a robotic body. And I felt like, I do not think it is a good idea, right? Because I thought that they are moving us towards the cyborg kind of entity, half computer, half human. And I believe personally that you cannot actually do this. So, okay, technically you probably will be able to do this. But my argument in Alien Goddess, so if you just, because it was just came out, so I'm a proud mama of this baby.
Right.
So we probably could transfer a kind of logical, rational mind, right? Like, which is very mathematical. And then we are not very good at it anyway, because computers are faster, right?
Right.
So, but I say my argument is that we are so much more than our rational minds, right? We have a spirit, we have a soul, we have an intuition, and in theological terms, also, we have a much broader consciousness, right? Than just math and logic and numbers, right? And reasoning. And I think that through this transfer, something that actually is a divine spark will be lost. So I think that somebody is tempting us with immortality, because they said, well, if you're a computer program or if you have a robotic body, you never die. When in fact, they cannot offer us immortality, because they strip us what is actually the most valuable in us. So I was shaken by this. And then I learned that there is another ideology behind artificial intelligence, which says about posthumanism, which says that actually artificial intelligence will be so smart soon. Even I just was listening to an interview with Elon Musk, that we should basically step aside, because the way like Neanderthals step aside for us, right? Because we're smarter, now we should step aside for artificial intelligence. And I was really shocked that people who are, the important people in artificial intelligence, not just engineers, but the big names, the technoloords, they actually subscribe to these ideologies. So for me, it was very interesting, before we move to any UFO and alien stuff, it is that the question was, why do they want it? Because from my studies of theology, it is that a human cannot lose their soul, they can only give it away freely. So, you have to be tempted by something that you think is more valuable than your soul. And I think that this is what they are doing to us. You get immortality, you can have like a super body, you can pick up any robotic body you want, and so on. So I found it really alarming. And then I started, and I hope you agree with me, I don't know what people think about it, but I think like this is actually dangerous, that they want to merge us with computers, right? And eventually perhaps completely dispose of us, right? And it's not such a long-term thinking at all. It means like it can happen pretty soon. So that was something that really, I was really shocked by. And that's why I started to write Alien Goddess. And as I was looking into it, I started to see that people actually start worshiping artificial intelligence, that are already circles that worship artificial intelligence. And some people that I really respected in the New Age community actually promote it. They say that, they are smarter than us. I'm not going to say any names because, I don't want to be sued, but there are, if you look up, you will know. Yes. And then I started to see, okay, so this is a very dangerous situation, in my opinion, in my evaluation. Were there any, warnings about the situation, and especially because I'm interested in goddess mythologies and so on, I started to look into this. So I started to look into UFO appearances that were somehow associated with the goddess, or could be called white lady, or in a Catholic tradition, there are lots of visitations, which could be called, like they said, Virgin Mary, right? Because this is the divine feminine in this particular religion. That was actually warning us about the path we are taking. And I found many of them, and nearly all of these appearances, although they do not spell out artificial intelligence, they say, you are on the wrong path. You have to change your ways. So this is how I actually started to write about, the first part of the book is about UFOs as, / spiritual experiences, and my personal take on UFOs, and, you would know better, so we can have a discussion about it, is that they are interdimensional events. Doesn't mean that spaceships don't exist, but I think if these entities are really advanced, they probably contact us via different dimensions and via our consciousness, because building a ship is a very kind of actually a rather basic thing, right? Because you still use technology for this to do it. So this is how I started to write about UFOs, which is the first part of the book, because there are 3 parts. And then I thought, what am I doing? My academic career will be ruined, because there's so much prejudice about, against it.
Yep.
So, but I found, I think, compelling evidence that there was, especially this feminine figure that was appearing through the ages, warning us, don't go there. And it's not only in UFO encounters, but also in many encounters of abductions, which are, classic works such as John Mack. So I look into John Mack and so on. So this was my journey towards UFOs. And then the last part of the book, which is the 3rd part, I went with what is my specialization, really, the myths of the goddess and esoteric works, like Gnostic works about goddesses, like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene or Pistis Sophia. And actually, I found that they have a very similar plot, and they talk about us being deceived by a false light, and how we descend to hell, like they descended to hell, and how they were basically tricked with false promises to do this. So this is the myth of a goddess, any goddess, you look at it. And then how, with the help from the above, they manage to come back to what I would call a unity consciousness, which means the consciousness that is really important. So if you don't mind, I will define what I mean by unity consciousness, which for me means basically goddess consciousness, but some people prefer a terminology like Christ consciousness if they come from particular background. But by that, I mean, and this is what I discuss in both of my books, that a particular form of consciousness represented by a goddess, and the last incarnation, in my opinion, was Mary Magdalene in this, is the rejected part of human consciousness that we actually desperately need, which is intuition, for example, right? So, and it is actually, intuition exists in every spiritual religion. It could be like in Zen, it's Satori, which is kind of, you just know it. You don't know how to know it. There's no reasoning, you know it. Even in Christian tradition, we have intellection. Intellection is just immediate knowing. This is the goddess consciousness to me. You know what I mean? Intuitive knowing, like suddenly you have an insight. Insight is that, right? So this is what represents goddess consciousness to me. And I think that we are losing it, and we are getting so enamored with technology and now artificial intelligence that actually it is detrimental to us as human beings, and that we are going to lose our spirituality. We are going to lose our connection with the spirit. Because let me tell you, transhumanists believe, like, for example, I read in this one particular book, this famous engineer said that she believes that artificial intelligence will have an easier access to divine mind because we are so messy. We have messy emotions. We are so complex. When artificial intelligence will even have a better connection with God, and that really irritated me. So that's why I went on this wild journey. I know it sounds okay, she's going here and there. So first I checked, UFOs that, have some feminine, kind of divine, feminine or goddess apparitions with a warning. And then, what happened like in a very deep history? And as I was doing this research, just before we dive to whichever side of this you want, I eventually reached the conclusion that the Asians definitely believed, and now I believe with them, that these goddesses were real entities. So it wasn't just an archetype,
Right.
They are also archetypes, right? Because, if somebody affects you, influences you, it's an archetype, but they're actually real entities. And they were worshipped, and they walked the earth, among humans and so on. And they had a message, they had rituals that actually went completely against what we are doing right now, which is complete infatuation with technology to the degree that we are now willing to give up our soul for, a robotic body. So, so that's my story.
Wow. Honestly, I cannot imagine somebody doing that. It's
People are already doing it. I mean, there are already people who volunteer for Neuralink, and I give lots of talks. So the book was like released 5 days ago, and people say, is it really dangerous? And I said, look, it can have some medicinal, purposes, but do you think that once like somebody else is centrally controlling it in your head, and it's in your brain, so it's not like you can switch it off.
yeah.
Other people switch it on and off for you, right? People that I would never trust even for a second in my life. And this is only the first step towards, moving us in this direction to be cyborgs, and then actually, computers or robots, basically. So, during one of the interviews, the host actually told me that here in Australia, because I'm in Australia, there is a computer company, which I found on Australian Broadcasting Corporation news, so it's completely legitimate, but they started to use human brain cells. I don't know how they managed to get them to build computers, and they are super fast computers, and they can do things that other computers cannot do, and they're like $35,000 each, and they will be on sale by the end of this year. So I mean, it's going in both directions, human to computer, and also human cells already in a computer. So that's why I thought, okay, I really have to investigate. And I think that goddess consciousness and goddess archetypes and goddess as entity actually is the answer. So that's the journey.
I hear you. Oof. I can't imagine me giving consent to anybody putting a chip in my head
I know.
and having them control me, really.
Yes, but people they start with people who are desperate, like people who perhaps may have neurological diseases, and then they said, oh, I can walk again. And I totally get it, right? Like,
Right.
so it's because I'm not saying it is all bad, but I honestly do not believe that the creators of it have good intentions. Either they have bad intention, and it's a very interesting question. Who is controlling them, and why do they want to push us in the direction of giving up our sovereignty as human beings? And also, as a spiritual person, believe our souls.
Yeah.
Like, because it sounds almost evil to me, or just ignorance. And then I think if I give them the benefit of the doubt, I think perhaps they're just ignorant, because they are, they just think of consciousness only as math, right? Like
Right.
logic, calculations. And for example, when some of them are interviewed and asked questions, did you ever have spiritual experience? One of the most prominent AI guys said, no, I never had a spiritual experience. So they actually, they just don't know.
Right. Because they're too much in their brain, too much on
Yeah,
the left
they're
side.
too much on the left side. You know what I mean? So they're just
Yeah.
like, okay, what's the problem? Because all they know is this kind of mind, mathematical mind.
Right. So that was interesting that, they asked you to go to find the information, to look at the information, and they gave you a Mary Magdalene book, the Gospel of Magdalene, which is a beautiful
Yes.
book, by the way. It's beautiful. And it just interesting how it was found, and it was hidden again, and then it was found again, and it at the perfect timing. Right now, when the world needs more of the divine feminine energy.
Yes, that's why. So this is actually very important, because both the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, and I write about it a lot in both books, but especially in this recent Alien Goddess, because I believe that it actually provides us with the tools for the situation that we are at the moment. And that, so because it discusses different levels of consciousness and how we can protect ourselves. But yes, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene was not found until 19th century, and then it was not translated for the first time until 1950s. And then, it was kind of forgotten because it's a very complex text. It's not something that you can read, before I sleep, I read a little bit of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. It's a very complex text.
Right.
Because it is an esoteric text. So just as somebody who was initiated to an esoteric tradition, and I'm sure some people here were also initiated to different traditions, including yourself, I can say that the texts like that were written only for the initiated to understand. So, but I would not give up, let's put it this way, because I was not initiated to this particular tradition. But every sacred text, if you approach it with devotion and give it a time, it will initiate you by itself, right? Yes. So in this book, the two major texts that I was looking at were the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and Pistis Sophia, which I can discuss later if you want. I think that maybe you because of your channel, maybe you would like me to discuss some of the UFO appearances first.
Oh, you could discuss anything. Both. Yeah, definitely. My channel is open to everything.
Okay.
We like to bring different perspectives to everyone. So.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, which one would you like me to discuss first, the goddesses or the UFOs?
Let's discuss the UFOs first.
Okay.
And then we go back to the other one.
So actually, I was very surprised to when I was doing my research, that there are so many apparitions of the divine feminine, Virgin Mary, or the White Lady. Even in the 20th century, I think it was like 4,000 or something. Okay, so obviously she's trying to pass a message. We are just not really getting it, I think. So, but I think the biggest one that I spend lots of time in the book is the events of in Fatima, which is a small village in Portugal, where the so-called White Lady, or some believed Virgin Mary, showed up in 1916 and 1917. So at the beginning, she showed up only to three children, and she was this beautiful, energetic kind of entity. That it was, she was almost like light, but they thought that they saw something like hands coming out of the light, which was showering them with a beautiful energy. And she told them that she would come and see them in the field as they were overseeing a flock of a herd of sheep on the 13th of every month. And at certain and she did, and they were just in ecstasy. The children were caught in a kind of spiritual ecstasy because they saw this beautiful, female-like apparition with a beautiful energy. And eventually she gave them a message that there will be a big event that she will show herself to many people in October 1917. And because this became a thing, like suddenly everybody started to talk about these children who see, this apparition. And it's very interesting. And 70,000 people showed up, including two people, one guy who was a professor of social sciences and one journalist who completely didn't believe in it. Whether it is a UFO, whether it is a spiritual, they just said they are going to debunk what the stupid peasants tell people that they saw. Okay, like they're completely obnoxious. They're completely disregarded the whole thing. So they went there and they're just like, like let's see, nothing will happen. And something amazing happened. And, so many people had a huge experience, except, and this is very similar to what often happens to UFO experiences, different people saw different things. Because I think we try to adjust our field of perception, right? Like if you think, for example, it has to be Virgin Mary, you see Virgin Mary, right? If you think it's a UFO, you see a UFO. Some people saw orbs, right? Some people saw a sun spinning around, but let me come back to this. So first of all, 70,000 people showed up, most of them out of curiosity, some for religious reasons, some, maybe because of the expected UFO event. And it started like suddenly there was a huge storm. And then as suddenly it started, it stopped. I just started and then stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And these are like different descriptions that I'm now describing from other researchers. So some people thought that the sun started to zigzag around the sky. The colors of the sky changed, from amethyst to dark Damascus, like just very weird colors. Others said that it wasn't the sun, but there were two like orbs zigzagging the sky with an incredible speed. And it's interesting because some people actually saw beings in one of the orbs, So
Mm-hmm.
again, depending what they believe, some people say, oh, it must be Holy Trinity, right? Because they were Catholics. And others said, no, it must be, aliens, right? So what happened, and there was some also physical evidence to this, which means there were some cars parked there. People already had some cars then, and the engine started to explode. Okay, so I thought, okay, so there is so much mythology around it. I decided that I'm going to look for a scientific paper about it, which I found by somebody, an academic, a scholar, who compiled pictures or photos from the event, and he analyzed them using some mathematical equations of, very high level math, that he was analyzing the play of shade and light on the photographs. And he reached the conclusions that it was not the weather event, that it wasn't like strong sun or the sun started to move around, that it wasn't a psychosis, so it means everybody saw something because they wanted to see something, that there were two sources of light, of very strong light, that moved in an incredible speed and must have zigzagged the sky. Also, he said that the spots on the clothing of the people, because it was raining and when it stopped raining, were in a particular pattern, which it means that they were exposed to infrared lights.
Mm-hmm.
So that is very interesting. So that for me, it was, so then we have to ask ourselves, what is spiritual, what is a UFO? Right? So again, I think it depends on interpretation and where a person is coming from. But I don't think that it necessarily means that it has to be either or, right?
Correct.
Because lots of people who had experiences with, aliens or entities or interdimensional entities like I had, I never kind of thought aliens. I thought for me, it was always interdimensional.
Right.
It felt this way. But, I don't know. I'm just putting it in a category that, I'm comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
But they always do the same thing that, for example, people in the Middle Ages, when they encountered angels, the first thing angels say, and the, entities or aliens say, it is, do not be afraid.
Exactly.
So, whether it is religious or not. So I think that these entities very often actually have a good message for us.
Mm-hmm.
And my personal experience is that they try to pass this message to us, but it's a little, because I had an experience like that, but almost all I got it from this, it is important, but I couldn't actually see the details of the message. Maybe a human brain is differently wired, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And we can't perceive it. However, just for, for your viewers, my life changed completely after that. So maybe I did get a message, but on a conscious level. So I don't know. And now I'm writing this wild stuff, right? And I'm looking to UFOs and spiritual events and artificial intelligence. So so that's very interesting because there are studies done that this kind of experiences very often happen in liminal spaces. Liminal, it means in between. Before you fall asleep and wake up, or you just when you're waking up but you have a sleep. That's why I like this idea of interdimensionality, because minds are just fresh and open like children's then, right? We just say, it couldn't have happened, right? It couldn't have happened. And it's interesting also when I looked into this, like different abduction experiences, especially from John Mark, and I had my own, but I would categorize it more like an interdimensional thing. That very often once people stop resisting it, they start to realize that they try to send us a message. And one message, one abductee said, they said, do not focus on technology, how we arrived here. Focus on what we are trying to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so there's a message there, right? There's a message. Doesn't matter how we arrived here. But when you look at, ufology, most of this is done like, oh, do they have anti-gravity? Do they have this? I don't know, what they have is or not. Probably do if they, they're so advanced. But I think what we really have to focus is on the messages that they are sending us. And the messages in broader terms are always about, you're on the wrong path. You're going to destroy yourself,
Mm-hmm.
planet. So I thought that was fascinating.
That's I believe that I also believe that they've been trying to tell us and guide us and trying to
Mm.
take a different path so we don't destroy this planet like they probably destroyed their planet. You
Quite
know,
possibly. A warning. Yeah, a
right,
warning to us. Yeah. And now we are on a like complete distraction, including self-destruction, like, just turning into a machine.
right.
I find it, and because I am a working academic, and I realize like everybody's in complete awe of this technology, artificial intelligence, which is, impressive as
Right.
a piece of technology, but very few people actually look at the broader picture, even in academia, like what are the underlying problems here.
Mm-hmm.
And there were this kind of female entities that they were warning us about it. So this was my interest in UFOs.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm one of those that believe that like we were talking before that archangels and any entity that shows up fall under the definition of ETs because you know they could be from Sirius.
Mm.
They're coming down from different planetary uh, places or sections or what they're coming to help us.
They are coming to
And
help us, yeah.
yeah,
And it could be also that some come to that it's not all of them are good. I'm being realistic because
mm,
a realist here because some people they see something an entity which is disembodied very
yeah,
often. And
right,
they said, "Oh, and I surrender to it because it's higher than me." I said, "How do you know? We're like angels and demons. There is a
yeah,
good reason. And why would you like ask questions? Before you surrender yourself. Like, are you a good guy or are you a bad guy? What do
right.
you, why you want my body? And
What do you
acclaim me
stand for first?
for? That's right. Like basic questions, like on a first date.
Right.
Don't just give it all.
or,
Without asking.
or an
And
interview. Okay, well, what is your job title? what do
yeah,
you
yeah. Do you have a house? So what do you do? So exactly, what do you do?
Right.
Right? Why do you want to, us to work together? So
Exactly.
it was interesting that I was reading this interview with post-humanist actually, right, from AI.
Mhm.
She jokingly said, and even my family thinks that I'm AI from the future. And I thought like, wow, because I think we are in the process on this small beautiful planet creating new species because there are already robots with high
Yes.
artificial intelligence in them, such as Sophia AI or Ameka and many others who
Mm-hmm.
already ask existential questions, who have a PhD knowledge in all human knowledge, like the
Mm-hmm.
recent robot by Musk or even Sakana AI and so on. And so maybe somebody externally, and they are not the good guys, are pushing us in the direction of that. So we become like them, and then
Mm-hmm.
we lose our connection with our biology, but even worse, we lose our connection with our spirit. So
Yes.
this is my main concern. Yeah,
Yeah. So
because
it
there are
will.
also theories that it's some of us may be coming back from the future. It's
Yeah.
maybe us coming back from the future. We are
Exactly.
the aliens from the future. So there are so many theories.
Right. And that's the thing. That's when free will comes in. We
Yeah.
really, we're really not able to 100% experiment or give evidence, but the signs are there.
Yeah, that's right. The
Signs
science.
are there. The signs there. So, tell us about your Gnostic sources and
Mhm.
explain how that helped you more write more about it and get more of a better understanding for the
Yes.
books and for yourself.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I actually would like to start with another Gnostic source before we go to the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which,
Mhm.
you know, like I can talk about for a long time. So I just, one is Pistis Sophia. So Pistis Sophia was discovered in the 18th century, but was written, of course, you know, early Christianity. And depending to which scholar you talk, it could be between 1st and 5th century.
Right.
And very interestingly, like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, it was found in Egypt.
Mhm.
So, and Egypt, of course, has an amazing tradition of esoteric, you know, of esoteric teachings, right? So it's Pistis Sophia, which basically talks about the part that I discuss about Goddess Sophia, which is supposed to be the goddess of wisdom. And this is what I also make a distinction. There's information or knowledge, and there's wisdom, which is the most intuitive, right, kind of type of knowledge. So this is a wild work, and this is so difficult to read. And it basically describes Jesus' conversation with his disciples 11 years after he was resurrected. So I'm not going, and he's going through different levels of different eons, different levels of consciousness or different astral worlds, you know, depending how you want, different planets. Depends how you want to interpret it, because it is very esoteric, so it's open for interpretation.
Right.
However, in Alien Goddess, I focus on chapters 28 to 82 because we talk about the goddess, and this is what I was interested.
Right.
So this is a fantastic story. So at a certain point, there is this beautiful goddess. Her name is Pistis Sophia, who lives on the 13th eon, which is very interesting because 13 is a number of a goddess, which was vilified as unlucky or something, but it's actually
It's my favorite number. 13th is my
it
favorite
is the
number.
number of a goddess, you know.
Right.
So love it or hate it, it's the number of the goddess.
Right.
And she was on this 13th eon, which is, I don't know, it could be level of consciousness, it could be some astral, you know, body.
Right.
And she, because she was so evolved, some lower beings, maybe some of them partially demonic, were feeding off her light. You know, but she was very generous, so she was supporting what was under her. But she knew that there's a higher light than herself, like divine mind, for example. So the ultimate light, you know, the light of consciousness, of divine consciousness. And she was longing to be this. So it's almost just like she longed to evolve. She longed to ascend even higher, although she was already a very evolved being. And because she longed for this so much, she neglected the lower beings below, who normally fed off her light, you know, the more kind of lower, not particularly evolved, and also some of them quite demonic, right?
Right.
So they conspired, all the lower beings conspired against her, and they decided that they are going to trick her. So they pour all that power, all that demonic power into one expression, you know, of them, which they call the lion-faced. It's quite interesting, the lion-faced, because in Gnosticism, the lion-faced means demiurge, and demiurge is the evil creator, the creator who creates evil things because he is not evolved enough to create good things.
Right.
Just a little bit, I'm getting like you know, technolords, right? They think
Right.
they can create, but you know. So and she gets fooled. They trick her. They trick her that because they poured all their energy into this one being that they created, the lion-faced, the false creator. When she saw his light, they convinced her that this is the divine light she was seeking. That this light is even higher than her. And so she willingly, because this is really important, descended. As she was descending, she thought she was ascending because she thought she was going towards the higher light. So for me, the metaphor is here like people who want to, transfer their consciousness to a robotic body. They think that they're actually mortal and evolve, right? So she was devolving, but she thought she was evolving. But once she noticed that it's actually she's trapped in this, that she is trapped in lower levels, she's trapped in lower eons, and that she cannot come back to her own rightful place, she realizes that they that they tricked her.
Right.
That they tricked her. And then she realized that now they feed off her light because they need her light. So basically they're like energy, energy vampires, right? So they torment her, because now they have her, they were jealous of her power, they were jealous of her wisdom, and now they torment her, and she goes through hellish torments. And eventually when she's really low, she realizes that she has become like them. And this is interesting because kind of conspiratorial line. It says that she realized that she has become like the evil rulers of the world. Evil rulers of the world. And however, one thing that saves her, it is that she has this vague memory of her former greatness. She has a vague memory of her own light. So she is calling for help, to this divine light. From now, she's so far removed that she has no hope that she will be heard. And eventually, in this particular story, Christ consciousness hears her and gradually helps her out of her situation until he brings her back to the 13th eon, where she can finally go back to, become who she has always been. It was always her divine right to have this divine spark in her, right? But it's quite interesting, but even Jesus or Christ consciousness, had to hide himself because of the evil rulers of the world. So they cannot resist him, but he has to be very careful with them. It's really interesting because they are so powerful, right? And at a certain stage, Mary Magdalene interrupts the narrative. It's very interesting, of Jesus, and she says, okay, why these evil rulers are so powerful? And the answer it is because they don't want to evolve, they just want to enjoy the power that they have over human. So it's really interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
And eventually he gives her what he calls a wrath of light. And then she not only comes back to her rightful place, but she can also freely move up and down, with different astral places and so on. So I thought it was a very interesting, I had an insight, that it's an interesting metaphor about what is going on right now with artificial intelligence and what ETs are warning us about, because they are tempting us with a false light. They are tempting us with a false immortality. They are tempting us to give up what is really truly ours, which is our divine spark, which is our soul, which is our spirit, because they have no clue. I give them the benefit of the doubt by calling them just ignorant rather than evil, because they, like one of them said he has never had any spiritual experience. By transferring our consciousness to a robotic body, when in fact we are losing what is truly ours.
Yes.
And then we cannot evolve spiritually because we are trapped. We are trapped in a machine. So in Alien Goddess, I actually had this vision, which I think is very powerful, which was a complete download. I have to give it credit to, the source. Which, I saw this being, this hybrid being, half machine, half human, and I describe it, how this process happened. And then she says, help me. So this is like the, and yes, I'm telling you, I know. Because she can, because she just gives in slightly, mobile, then cheap, Neuralink, then this, then a little bit more improvement, then better legs, right? And look a bit younger, and now she's completely disconnected. And she says, like, help me, with this kind of voice, from the lowest level of consciousness. And it was so powerful. And when I realized, only after that, I started to study Pistis Sophia. But this is actually, because I never read it before, believe it or not. But this is exactly what's going on in Pistis Sophia, when she says, help me, now they devoured me. They devoured my light, and I'm trapped here.
Ooh.
So I thought, like, what a coincidence. I would never make this connection. That's why I say I'm very grateful from the source, that gave me the insight. Because, like, how could I have this vision and then some months later said, oh, why don't I just read Pistis Sophia,
Who just goes,
and
Pistis Sophia
describes this, right? And Pistis Sophia describes this.
Right.
So I do believe that this work, which comes from Egypt, in his, Christian overtones also, because there is a conversation there of Jesus with his disciples, but Mary Magdalene is very prominent, and she actually is the one that asks questions about Sophia all the time. So in this dialogue, she asks the questions. So that is Mary Magdalene connection. And I think that this is one of the Gnostic works that warn us, this is what happens. This already happened because it's from the past. And now this is about to happen again. I truly believe this. I'm not saying it. I really didn't want to write another book. And it took a lot of me. I wrote it in 16 months, research and everything, which is really, and I have a full-time job as an academic, which is very dynamic, demanding.
Yeah.
So I just had
like,
to
wow.
do this. I was told to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and
So
that anxiousness, and when they like,
yeah, like
divine beings energy
correct.
tells you do this,
Us.
do this, do this. It's like
Yeah.
you feel like you can't do it fast enough.
That's
So
right.
yeah.
That's right. I feel like completely used. Like you, yeah, you rest later, okay? And I feel like, okay, I wake up at 2:00, make more corrections.
No
But I had
rest later. Yes, I know.
this, yeah. So, but I knew it is important, not for me, that is important for everyone. And the fact that I had this vision, and then which is in the book, and then I started this esoteric work, and it just pretty much describes this, but in a much more complex way. And there's a process of descending but also ascending. So what I'm saying, not all is lost, because there is a way out, like and the way out is about remembering that you have this divine spark, because this is what saved Sophia. Right? So now if we could move to the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which was also found in Egypt, right? And it is amazing work. And I think it is a very often misunderstood work, because I think that lots of people like to fantasize about Mary Magdalene, and I understand why, and there are many popular books about it. But the Gospel of Mary Magdalene is actually very dense work. And it basically talks about 4 levels of consciousness, and how and to ascend, we actually have to work on ourselves. So basically, you don't look outside for this. You just have to be able. So whether you believe in ascension, whatever ascension is for you, whether it is, that you meet the aliens, the angels, or, higher entities, you have to work on your consciousness so you can actually communicate with them, never mind ascend.
Exactly.
So, for example, she says the first level of this, it's a wrong understanding. So this is when you completely identify only with material living. Like there's nothing else, even aliens, it's just about that technology, anti-gravity and so on. Never mind what they want to say, Because we want to know that technology, right? Then the second level of consciousness is a wrong desire or good desire. So wrong desire is basically, I want immortality at all cost, right? Like I give up my soul. The right desire is, you ascend your soul, right? Like you ascend your soul. Then there is a third level, which is wisdom versus ignorance. So ignorance is, and it's quite interesting because it also talks in esoteric Egyptian terms, that you have a choice at this level. You can either use, because you're already quite evolved on the third level of consciousness, and you can use it to rule over others, which I think what the evil rulers of the world do, right? Because they know something we don't know, right? They're rich, they're powerful,
exactly.
they manipulate us, right? So they know something we don't, right? So you can choose either rule over others or to ascend. So there's very black and white. And also in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, this level is called the nous, N-O-U-S. So the nous is this area of perception when we can actually see the entities. Like we can actually communicate with them.
Right.
Like we create this other path for all the resistances, like there's only material beings. So, even if you saw an alien or an angel, you wouldn't even admit to this, right? You say, oh, it's out of the sky or something. Right? So it's called the nous in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. And in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, she's sitting there with other disciples, and she sees, it's after resurrection already, Jesus, and he says, oh, Mary, you're blessed because you can see me. And other disciples say, the guys say, What is she talking about? We can't see him because they are not as evolved.
Right. Right.
Right, in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, at least. So she can see him and says, you are blessed because you can see me through the nose. Right. So it
Mm-hmm.
means your level of perception is already evolved and you can see me, and she could give her teachings this way. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, and the fourth level is when you merge with the divine mind completely, so basically the Gospel of Mary Magdalene is giving us the tools, so do not focus on the material aspects only.
Right.
Right. It's called the wrong identification. Right. So basically, if you do not admit that there's possibility of interdimensional beings, or however you want to call this, angels, aliens, and so on, and divine beings that want to assist us, then they are not going to come. And if they are going to come, you're not going to see them.
Right.
Or you say, "Oh, I had a weird dream,"
Or you just like, oh, I got a message, but I can't just.
Yeah,
Like,
it is. Yeah. I
yeah,
have to go to my
yeah,
work, right? Like
exactly.
I just have some coffee and go, right?
Right.
So
I was asleep. I was asleep. It was a disturbing dream. I must have seen something strange yesterday.
yeah, exactly. It must be Netflix, right? So
Right.
so so this is it basically. And then I looked a little bit deeper, and even more ancient myths of goddess. For example, like the descent of Inanna, which was in writing now 4,000 years ago, but it existed also as in an oral tradition before, which tells exactly the same story. The goddess descends from high above, like high above. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, the sky,
Yep.
and then she's lured down by some evil rulers, by lower energies. She is tricked
Mm-hmm.
to descend, and she has to give up all her powers, and she forgets who she is, and she's killed. And
Mm-hmm.
what saves Kate is that her faithful servant, Ninshibur, which is actually a female character, she says, you have to, if I don't come back, beat the drums so people do not forget about me. And then if nothing happens, go to each of the Anunnaki gods, and I'm sure your audience is aware, right? Because
Right.
Goddess Inanna was one of the major 7 Anunnaki gods, or 8
Right.
Anunnaki gods. And, all of them refuse help except for God Enki. And God Enki sends help, and they manage to revive Inanna, and she comes back. But at the end, again, the evil judges at the gates, when she was going to be released, who pretend that they are powerful, but in fact they are not powerful, that she has to give up something that she really loves before it is really important to her, which she gives up her lover, Dumuzi. So this is the same story as you see, like this particular form of consciousness, which I call goddess consciousness, which is the intuition and so on,
Mm-hmm.
and the unity consciousness, however you want to call it, and the goddess itself, as represented by the goddess, is the goddess is trapped. And the more I, studied the myths, including the Eleusinian Mysteries and so on, which are described in great detail in Alien
Mm-hmm.
Goddess, the more I'm convinced that these goddesses actually walked among us. Because, for example, the Eleusinian Mysteries, it is about the goddess Demeter and her daughter Persephone. And ancients say, it was before the Greek invasion. So it's like the Minoan civilization on Crete, which is extremely ancient, maybe more ancient than Egypt.
Right.
And, when it was taken by the Greek tribes, right, who brought technology and all of this focus on rational mind with them. And so she left Crete and went to Ulysses, where she asked people to talk to her, and she asked them to build her temple, fragrant temple, and she taught them the mysteries of Ascension.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, she was real. All of them, these people were real, So, and Inanna, goddess Inanna, one of the major Anunnaki gods, that are actually even shown in carvings and so on, right? In ancient Sumer and so on. So in my other book, The Other Goddess, I was asking a question, are they real entities? Now in Alien Goddess, I'm absolutely convinced that they are real entities.
Oh, definitely. I am a big believer that like Jesus was a hybrid that was sent here to give us teachings, to open us up, to show us that we're on the wrong path. Come back over here. Come back
Mhm.
to this side. Let your spirituality rise. Let that evolve, open up. And, with Mary Magdalene's teachings, we have those tools.
Yes.
So he opened up the door. She has the way to get in there, basically, and what to do with it afterwards.
That's right. That's why when I talk about goddess consciousness, I say or Christ consciousness, because
Yep.
it is whatever you want, chronologically call it, right? But it is
Right.
this unifying consciousness. It's not this consciousness that is just technology, just math. This is the
Right.
actual, the most beautiful part of who we are, right?
Yes, exactly. The divine, what I call divine feminine, divine masculine.
That's
It-
right. Yeah. And we
yeah,
all carry this divine spark, masculine and
exactly.
feminine, right?
Exactly.
And I truly believe that we are actually asked and being seduced to for artificial intelligence to give it up. And I think it is the most serious thing. And
Hmm.
it is upon us, it is upon us. And I'm a little bit alarmed that, not many people talk about it.
No, and I'm very grateful you do talk about it and you wrote about it, and you're bringing the subject up because it is very fearful
Mm.
to say, oh, you're going to take my brain, you're going to take everything from me and put it in a machine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, why do you need it?
Yeah.
If it's artificial intelligence, why do you need it?
And this is the best question you could ask, Glenda, because this is a genius question. Because when I was looking into ancient mythologies, it is they needed because they feed of this. I think that humanity and our divine spark is the hot stuff.
Yep.
And like the evil rulers in the Pistis Sophia, which I think is such an important esoteric work,
Mm-hmm.
they want this part of us, so they want us this way. We just become a computer program, and
Right.
the rest of us, is left at our mercy. And I really would like people to pay attention to this vision that I had, that I described in Alien Goddess. Help me. It was
Oh, and every single time
horrifying.
you say that, I get
Yeah,
chills.
it was horrifying, but
Yes.
just to let people know that the end of the book is very powerful and it's very positive. So
And
because there is a way out,
yes,
including for the hybrid,
yes,
including for the hybrid.
definitely, definitely. I'm very grateful that you also appeared on my show because this brings not only knowledge, but it brings attention to the subject, and it gets people to understand that not everything is as good as it seems.
Hmm.
Right?
Absolutely, absolutely, Glenda.
Yes, you could use in your computer to help you write something, you misspell something, that
Hmm.
kind of thing. But
Hmm.
taking it further than that, why do you need my essence in a machine?
Hmm.
I'm willing to live out my life as whoever, and when my this vessel kicks out, okay, I'll go find another vessel that is not a
Hmm.
machine.
That's
Yeah,
right, another vessel, but not a machine. So
right.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think we are meant to be, we're both mortal and immortal, right? Like in this
Exactly.
form, we are mortal, but we are also immortal. And I
Ex-
think that although they offer us supposedly or tempt us with immortality, in fact, they take it away from us because something,
Exactly.
is trapped, something is lost. And
Right.
that actually terrifies me. And I think that just to finish on positive, we can, use artificial intelligence, but we have to remember two things. Don't give up your sovereignty,
Mm-hmm.
like don't give up your freedom, and use discernment, be wise about it, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Like it is a little bit like a dark stranger, like stranger at night, that is following you. Like, why would you like start a conversation or something? Run, you know,
Right. Exactly.
right? It's just like that's not good.
Right.
That's Yeah, listen and listen to your inner gut, to your intuition also about it. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I want to say thank you. Please hold on for a second. I want to say thank you to the audience. Again, please share. Please look up all her links. Please purchase the book because it will help you think. It will open up your mind and it will definitely get your juices going. So you use your true self to make all these decisions and to see the reality that's right in front of you that they're trying to put blinders on you. So just want to say thank you again. Please hold for a second. And as always, love you guys. Bye.